Hey kids, and welcome to the show. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about relationships. I figure now that Valentine's Day is out of the way and people are now maybe starting some new relationships, I'm really not thinking that, but I am thinking that right now a lot of people don't understand what a good relationship is and what it should look like. And over the last few years, people have lost sight of how to act in public. Now, people are back out in public, and there is this concern about the way people interact. People haven't interacted in real life in a long time, and people are pushing us towards the metaverse. There's a lot of different things out there in virtual reality, and there are a lot of people who think that virtual reality is a substitution for human touch and interaction. Now, maybe it is on a certain level, and I could be wrong on this one, but I'm coming from a place of being born in the 70s, an old guy, and now I'm trying to understand a new world. Before we get into that, this new world of relationships, I want to ask you to do me a huge favor. Head down to the description and click on that Scars and Stripes coffee link. Buy yourself some great coffee and empower veterans every day. And hashtag United We Brew. Also, I would love to hear your comments on this video. Please go down to the comments, and I am doing premieres now, so I'll spend the entirety of the video when it premieres in the chat and would love to hear your comments in real time. Also, I don't have a whole lot of followers yet, so I still read all the comments. So put them in there if you want to hear me read about something else. I would love that. But again, it really helps us. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. So let's get back into relationships. Well, as an older person, I can tell you I've been in several relationships in my life. Two of the most important relationships I've ever had, as far as someone who wasn't related to me, are my wives. And I'm saying that plural. And I say that because I have an ex-wife or a former spouse, and I have a current wife. And there's that. Yes, I only have one wife. I am not a polygamist. I do want to talk about the two relationships. And I want to talk a little bit about my former wife. And it's not what you think it is. Because I have to talk about her to talk about me. And the only way I can do this is to chat about her. Now, this is not going to be about my ex-wife, because that's not how I roll. But my daughter asked me a really good question, my oldest daughter, with her, and asked, what happened? Why did it end up the way it was? And even though I was ready for the question, I wasn't ready for the question. But here it goes. I'm answering the question. And hopefully, this will help other dads answer the question, or maybe if I answer it wrong, you can give me some advice in the comments, and maybe I can do better next time. So here we go. Relationships. Relationships are all about being evenly yoked. A yoke is that big thing that goes across the shoulders of oxen or cows or whatever when they're in a team, maybe horses or whatever. Something drawing a buggy. And that's it. When you get married or you're in a relationship, you put on this yoke together. And you pull the yoke. If one of you pulls too fast, you guys start going in circles. If one of you stops pulling, you start going in circles. And in my first marriage, I was very young, right out of the military, barely out of high school, and, well, I was in the military. So I take that back. Not right out of the military, I was in the military, right out of high school, in the military, young soldier. And I really didn't know who I was. And my ex-wife probably didn't know a lot about who she was. And we jumped into this thing called marriage. And marriage is something that looks really easy. It's actually really easy to do. You go to the courthouse, you fill out some papers, you say I do, and that's it. You are married. And when you're young, it's, you hear people say this, but when you're young, you do things that feel good. And there's no way around that. And being with her at the time felt great. We seemed to have a lot of the same goals and aspirations, and things started off wonderful. But then our goals started to change, our aspirations started to change, and we had never talked about any of this stuff. We had a very, I live in the country, I'm hearing a siren. I don't know if you're hearing it, but let's just pray for that group. So I go back to this. So in that relationship, we did not have the resources, the intelligence, the experience, or the wisdom to really do well. And in that time, neither one of our families really supported the marriage. And for whatever reason, I'm not even going to go to that, but they weren't they didn't support it. So fast forward to my marriage now, my current marriage, my marriage. We had an annulment, and it was really nice. I was able to get remarried in the Catholic Church. And I would love to talk about annulments at some point, but not today. So, like I said, that marriage ended because something broke. And in my mind, it was the yoke. Our yoke broke. And the yoke, again, the thing that has us pulling the cart together. Well, Rachel, my wife now, we try and focus on being evenly yoked. And we have spent a lot of time communicating and doing things that I didn't even think about doing in my previous marriage. Mostly because I was still an immature boy trying to act like a responsible adult. And I wasn't. It was a very hard time, transitioning from the military, her going to medical school. It was tough. And without a good support group, if your yoke breaks, it's broke. There is nobody to help you put it back on. So now, I'm in a situation, in a relationship, where our yoke is broken a few times. And we've gotten out of the yoke a few times. But we've always helped each other get it back on. And one of the reasons we're able to do that is because we're older. We understand that so much can happen around us that we have no control over, and yet we keep fighting. And we have language now. I can tell my wife, I feel like we're not yoked. We're not doing what's supposed to be done. And that's where we're at. That's what happens. When you are not evenly yoked, you start to feel like you're doing everything. Because if your partner starts to wane or starts to have a problem, they fall back. So here is the next stage of that. What happens when you have a big crisis? Let's say a pandemic, or something bad happens, an addiction. Let's say you become homeless, whatever that is. Unfortunately, we had to experience that. For me, it was being at the top of my game, being an awesome chef and getting invited to do awesome things and winning awards and all these wonderful accolades. And then in an instant, I'm in a wheelchair. And I am now unable to do all the things that I wanted to do. And then I lost my business slowly. And then I lost my home. And then I lost my friends. The person I didn't lose was that woman I was yoked to. And we continued to be yoked. And over the last few years, as I had issues with the medications that the VA had put me on, so many things. I had allergic reactions to medications. I had to come off of those just to get my mind right. You can actually see that on YouTube. I say a lot of times that YouTube saved my life because it gave me the opportunity to talk to my kids. So this whole show is always about talking to my kids, so I'm going to say this now. My daughter asked if I had any regrets, and this is it. This is my regret from my first marriage. I regret that I wasn't old enough, wise enough, intelligent enough, and passionate enough to treat your mom the way she should have been treated. I don't know where that mistreatment might have been in her eyes, but obviously she wasn't happy, and I'm willing to bet it's because we didn't talk. At that time, I was spending a lot of time at work, thinking that the most important thing was to have money in the bank. Now, I realize that having money in the bank isn't that important if the person you're spending your life with doesn't look at you with love. So now I pray that my former spouse, the mother of my children, the woman that made me a dad, I pray for her health, and I pray for her happiness. And I pray that she finds someone that loves her as much as I love Rachel. And I hope that my kids understand that no matter what happened between me and their mom, it was both of our faults. Because I have a truth, she has a truth, and someplace in the middle is the real truth. So there we are. Relationships. Relationships are hard. They are very hard. And if you want to push through and become someone who can be loved and to love, you need to do, I'm just going to name 3 things and make them up off the top of my head. And let's see how close I get. This is what you need to do when you are in a relationship. Number 1, don't need a relationship. Don't need someone to fulfill you. You can do that yourself. Get your hobbies, get your love, get all that stuff in order. You don't need a relationship. So 1, realize you don't need a relationship. 2, love yourself. Meditate, pray, do whatever you need to do, but love yourself more than any other person in this life. And then number 3, find someone that loves themselves, and then pour your love into them as they're pouring their love back into you. And that love is what creates that yoke. So make that yoke as strong as you possibly can. Because I'm going to tell you, my children, the yoke that your mother and I have is unbreakable. It has standed the test of time. And the stories that you will hear will not even come close to the pain, the sorrow, and then the happiness and joy that we have received in this relationship that started with a little thundercat scream in Las Vegas, Nevada. I haven't uploaded that video yet because it's one I want to watch with Rachel again. So if you have a new love or you have an old love, do those 3 things. And remember, you are worth it. You are amazing. Until next time, work hard, be kind,